Shabbat Shalom. After the holidays are over, after the Chagim, Israel is going to go through yet another election. This last summer, I was talking to Marshall Kupchin, who was a principal here before David Schwartz. When he retired, he made Aliyah, and he said to me, I never expected this. It's only been 4 years I've been living in Israel, and I've voted 4 times already. Then we have our elections here coming up. We know it's all going to be very heated and intense again. And sometimes we wonder, when is it all going to stop? When do we actually get there? When do we find the peace? When do all our dreams and hopes come to reality? It takes a long time. As you know, I spent years, part of my years growing up in Europe, and I spent much time thinking about the difference between there and here. And one of the differences is there, the cultures are very old, thousands of years in one form or the other. And I wouldn't say that there are no more societal dreams, but many of them have run their course. It is as it is. While here in Israel, we still very much are living with dreams of our return to a land, what that means, and how it will express itself. It's being fought out in every one of these elections over there. And over here of a nation meant to trying to give all of its inhabitants possibility of the pursuit of happiness and to be a force of liberty and of justice in the larger world. And maybe we can say that for your dreams to become reality takes a long time. We shouldn't think it comes so quickly. So in our parsha this week, it says, Ki tavo el haaretz, when you arrive in the land, finally, after all the 40 years, the less you think, once you've arrived in the land, you've done it, you've arrived, no problem. Now you can lean back under your fig tree and enjoy the bounty of the land. Well, it's only just beginning. I have a whole new set of laws you have to start to apply when you get there. So what do you do when you finally arrive? Well, you work towards the next goal. As one tells couples when they are getting married, a wedding is just the beginning. It's what happens in the years and decades afterwards that really counts. And part of bringing a dream into the world. And yet every step is momentous. Every step counts. Every step is part of the process. When we read the journeys of the children of Israel as they're traveling through the desert, every step through the desert was painful, and every step through the desert was also momentous. And every moment in the promised land was painful, and every moment was momentous. But eventually they did get there. And they built the temple, and they united the tribes, and they wrote the Bible, the most beloved book of humanity, probably. And they had prophets, and they changed the world, but it took 1,000 years to get there. We have so very many visions in our lives, visions for what our society should look like, visions for what our world should look like, vision for our own lives, visions for us as community leaders, for our community. And then the challenging part begins, actually bringing it into this world and creating it. And I remember the day the Berlin Wall fell, and I was quite young, living with my parents, and I asked my parents about it. We discussed communism, and they shared what was the chokhmah of the day, what was the wisdom of the day. I said, not a bad vision in some ways, equality for workers, equitable division of resources, let the state help. But in reality, beyond the workings of kibbutzim in Israel, didn't quite ever really work. It was a dream. And even there in the kibbutzim, a few generations later, it became challenging. We don't always realize how much work it takes to hold on to that vision and bring it into this world and make it work, make it kayam, established. And to take into reality where it's part of just people's lives and culture and touching on habits and just integrate it into how people think and fitting into our human nature. And our propensity is to think, we've gotten there. Now I can rest under my fig tree. We have it all. We have the equality. We have the justice. We have our new beginning. Our dream is done. Then we have to remember, Ki tavo al haaretz. When we come into the land, it's not the end, just the beginning. And perhaps just the nature of human dreams, how intangible they are. And our world is complicated and resistant to change and concrete. We often seem to take a step backwards instead of forwards. So what is the lesson of all of it? The Parsha, one, Ki tavo al haaretz, don't expect it to be differently. The lesson is just accept. It takes a while, and sometimes not all of the pieces ever work together. It takes time and energy, but also not to get discouraged when the dreams don't seem to fit. In our collective dreams, in our national dreams, in our personal dreams. And sometimes you just have to value the work of bringing it all to fruition, every step, every detail. And we live in a society where we value the dreamers. We tend to think it's the people who have the dreams who are the great leaders. But the people who know how to take the dreams and bring them into reality are also great. It's easy to have a vision and a dream, but to put it into place is painstaking and endless. And yeah, we can say that every piece is precious and every part falls into place is precious. And then we are able to actually do it. We are changing the world. And part of a much greater work that stretches back generation to generation to generation, and each one of us contributing our little piece and having faith that it will take it one step forward. We say in Ethics of the Fathers, Lo lecha mlacha ligmor velo ata ben chorin lehivatel himena. You're not expected to complete the task. It's not upon us to complete the task, nor are we free to desist from it. So we do our pieces, and every piece that we each do in our lives is one open door. Sometimes we're able to walk through it, and someone takes someone else to walk through it. And part of the understanding of the Torah is that the dream is ever evolving, even as we have a Torah as its basis. Visions have to be grounded in something larger, but the details are flexible and have to move with the times. And I always admire Ben Gurion, who looked at the UN partition, complicated time, and the Palestinians were offered what had been the heartland of ancient Israel, Hebron, Judea, and Samaria. And the Jews were offered all the lands. Yes, there was Tel Aviv, but lands that belonged to the Philistines in biblical times. Not the core of ancient Israel. But he said, okay, it's taken us 2,000 years. It's not the Israel of biblical times, but it's next door, and much of it is the same, and better than nothing. And we need to remember that a vision changes as the world changes, it needs adjustment. And in our own lives too, we have to not become fixed in our visions or not lose touch with reality. And all the greatest movements are those that survive because they can adjust to their times and don't stay fixed. And those who contribute to humanity are the great contributors, are the ones who do not let go of their dreams, but are also willing to try from all the different angles until they make it work. Elon Musk, not my favorite person in the world, but yet I have respect. And I remember the news stories years ago when it looked as if the company that he was building was going to collapse and they were never going to be able to produce the vehicles en masse or however it was. And he was sleeping under desks and doing all kinds of strange things. But somehow it worked out pretty well for him. And of the many strange visions he has, some will work, some will not. And for our own life, it's the same. We do not have to do it all. We don't have to accomplish every piece of our vision. And to think in the long term, the long vision. Life is long. We have to have perseverance. In the end, we can't forget it's the precious value of birthing something new into the world. And however challenging it is to find a wonderful treasure of newness and blessing, but that is part of some incredible process that we are blessed to be part of as human beings in partnership with God and creating the world and the act of creation. whether it is birthing something new in our personal lives or in our lives as a nation, as a world, but to bring just a little bit more peace, a little bit more fulfillment, a little bit more harmony, a little bit more substantial knowledge of who we are, what we're doing in this world, is substantial and worthy. And it's part of the great task of living and worthy of sounding the great shofar of new beginnings. Shabbat Shalom.